Artist Bernice Stott has always been fascinated with water as a very source of life. In an attempt to express the value of water as both a spiritual and life-giving force, and the need to protect it as such, she recently presented an exhibition of sculptures which celebrate the role water plays in our lives.
When I was a teenager, I was a surfer, and I used to sit out in the ocean, and I was very aware of it being both life-generating and also quite life-threatening because it could be death-defying. And from that, my own children went into climate change. My son was a biotechnologist and looking at wastewater management, and the other son got into climate change. And I became more and more aware of water being called the blue gold of the future, and that there have been wars fought over water. And it has been described as the flashpoint of the future. And I needed to remystify it for us so that it became a commodity that we revere. And I began to look at the different religions in the world and found that water is a symbol of regeneration, renewal, sanctification through baptism or other forms. And it is that really inspired me to start thinking that I could somehow reinvigorate or revisualize for us the importance of water to us as human beings on the earth. So I started with a figure like this, Stella Maris, May's Madonna, Star of the Sea, because in Catholicism, Mary is regarded as the Star of the Sea. So she is the icon for navigation and sailing. However, I decided that she needed to be diving because she's always seen above the waters, as it were, but she navigates the subconscious. Underneath the water is also regarded as a symbol of the subconscious. So I was intending to play on that. We're bringing to consciousness what is subconsciously we do know about water. And she's made out of maize, so these are mealie cords that are stranded together to indicate that it's not only an African problem, the water shortage, water scarcity, but also a global problem. Birth is the universal symbol of new life, and this piece was really around my own experience of birth, giving birth. The second time that I gave birth, I needed to squat, and squatting chairs, etc., were not available here in South Africa, so it was a very unusual experience. And both my children were born to water music, meaning Handel's water music. And I was very aware of the fact that birth really is the fact that we all begin in amniotic fluid. We swim in amniotic fluid. And I had the disappointing experience of not experiencing my own breaking of my waters. So perhaps the sculpture explains that, because birth is genuinely very fecund. It's fertile, it's luscious, it's wet, it's regenerative, and this is what these birth waters really speak about. All of us come from them, our bodies are made up of water, to be that kind of celebration of life itself. Mid-Mardam having its water undrinkable in 14 years' time inspired this set of boxes in frosted glass because I wanted to show that the water clarity was an issue. I've called this piece Aquatic Weeds because weeds are generally algae that form in water, and there is chemical rush from farmlands as well as sewage, raw sewage is coming into Mid-Mardam. That in itself then causes algae to clog the water. There's no photosynthesis, the sun can't get in, and fish die because there's no air. So it was both beautiful and also quite parasitic and poisonous. So on one hand, there's this beautiful piece and the beauty of aquatic weeds, and then on the other hand, also our dumping that we're doing, polluting our oceans and our rivers and our water reserves, whether they be dams or other kinds of reserves, in the form of our plastics that we're throwing into the water and then our tins. And in fact, there are huge areas in the oceans that are kilometers wide called great big, or the one's called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which is, you can actually walk on it. It's this consolidation of plastics. But the chipping off of these plastics then affect the fish because they mistake for food and ingest it, and you have liver and stomach problems, and the fish are dying off. So it's an enormous problem. And then the end piece here was just again about the clarity of the water, but also that we have a mix of both pollutants and the aquatic weeds that are both needed, but at the same time do need to be controlled. The sculpture here was inspired by a street children's program, and I was part of that for about 5 years. And they participated in surfing, and surfing itself required them to transform their lives, to be healthy, and they loved being in the water. And they got away from their glue sniffing, so it was extremely life-changing for them. And some of them then competed nationally and internationally. And I called it Set Fire to the Rain because I took Adele's title of her song. The misery of their lives was ultimately quite regenerated by needing to be healthy and be in the water. I wanted to capture somehow the freedom that the children experience being in the water and the jubilation. The hair is electrified and out there, as it were, that they were fully immersed in that water as an agent that caused their transformation.